Many people view faith as closing your eyes and hoping for the best, a vague, baseless optimism designed to fill the gaps. Hebrews 11 replaces that ambiguity with a structural definition. It describes faith as the confidence in what we hope for and the absolute assurance of what we cannot see. This brand of faith treats a promise from God as a reality that is more substantial than the physical ground beneath your feet. It is a conviction that the invisible is more reliable than the visible. This perspective starts at the beginning of time. Before there were stars or humans, there was only God. By faith, we understand that the entire universe was commanded into existence, with everything we can see being formed out of absolute nothingness. If the invisible Word of God can pull a universe from a vacuum, it provides the baseline for the entire chapter, the capacity of God to act even when physical circumstances suggest there is nothing left. The history of this conviction begins with two brothers, Cain and Abel. They occupied the same world outside of Eden and performed the same religious acts, yet the results were different. Cain offered what was convenient. Abel offered the best of his flock. The distinction suggests that the value of an offering lies in the heart's trust rather than the outward ceremony. Generations later, a man named Enoch lived in a society descending into violence. While others forgot God, Enoch maintained a walking conversation with his Creator, a relationship so close he was taken from this life without experiencing death. This biography highlights a prerequisite for any relationship with God: the belief that He exists and the expectation that He responds to those who earnestly seek Him. Noah demonstrated the weight of this belief by spending a century building a massive ship on dry land. He worked through decades of mockery from a community that had likely never seen a flood. By prioritizing a warning from God over the opinions of his neighbors, Noah's obedience shielded his entire household when the rain finally arrived. The timeline continues with Abraham, who traded the security of a wealthy city for a life in tents. He left his home for a destination he hadn't seen, relying entirely on a command to go. When God promised Abraham and Sarah a son, they faced a biological impossibility. Faith in this moment was the decision to judge God's character as more reliable than their own physical limitations. Moses made a similar calculation. He turned his back on the treasures and power of Egypt, choosing to be mistreated alongside his people because he valued an eternal reward more than temporary comfort. At Jericho, the Israelites followed a battle plan that made no tactical sense, marching in silence for a week. Their obedience to a strange command shows that supernatural results often follow a willingness to look foolish to the world. The writer then lists names like Rahab, Samson, and David. These were deeply flawed individuals: a prostitute, a man of moral weakness, and a king guilty of grave sins. The inclusion of these figures shows that a desperate trust in God's mercy can qualify a person for His work, regardless of a messy past. But the narrative shifts. After the accounts of victory, the text forces us to look at the reality of those whose faith led to suffering. Many believers faced destitution, imprisonment, and execution. They were stoned, sawn in two, and driven into caves. They were offered their lives in exchange for their convictions, and they refused. To their contemporaries, these people looked like outcasts. However, the text offers a specific assessment of them, that the world was not worthy of them. The central lesson here is that faith requires the same power to endure a fire as it does to escape it. Both are presented as equal evidence of a life anchored in God. Despite these feats, none of these figures received the ultimate promise of the Messiah during their lifetimes. They died seeing the completion of the story only from a distance. They were runners in a relay race. Abraham, Moses, and David ran their sections and passed the baton through the centuries. The story remains open. The ancients cannot reach the finish line without us. The past and present are a single unified effort. This is the cloud of witnesses. Picture a stadium filled with those who have already run, cheering as you take your turn on the track. Their lives testify that God is faithful in the desert, the lion's den, and the prison cell. This chapter is a challenge to anchor your life in the eternal Word, rather than modern securities like wealth or government, which are susceptible to failure. There are spaces yet to be filled in this lineage. God is looking for people who will trust His promises when every physical indicator says to give up. By stepping into the race, you connect your personal history to a lineage of faith that stretches back to the beginning. You are walking toward a shared completion and a God who keeps every promise He has made.